Well, as you all know, it is the political season, and during political season, I get guests that drop by the studio, and I'm always glad for that because everyone who's running has the opportunity, if they so choose, to come up. In all honesty, if Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump wanted to come on the show, they are welcome to call in or stop by, or any of the gubernatorial candidates, whenever Phil Murphy or whoever is going to be on the Republican ticket, whoever wants to stop by, they're free to do it. Same thing for the sheriff. If Sheriff Burtnick wants to come by, or any of his opponents or freeholders, it really does not matter. They have the opportunity if they want. We don't turn anybody away, regardless of party, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. It really does not matter. As long as they express an interest and they want to come up, they can come up. So in many instances, a lot of the folks who know I have the show, they see me and they'll say, do you mind if we come on? I have no problem with coming on. And that is the case this morning with one of our school board members, Errol Kerr. And Errol saw me last week and said, "Are you still on the radio?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still there." And he said, "Do you mind if we visit?" I don't mind at all, because that's what we do. We provide a public service. So again, anybody who wants to come on, I want to make that very clear. It's not that we're leaning one way or the other. I do know Errol personally. We're personal friends as well, but I also know Errol professionally. And both of us have the sense enough to be able to draw the line. We have the personal side and we have the professional side, and they do not cross. So Errol has graciously joined me this morning here on the show, and because he is running for one of the seats in the Paterson Public School System School Board. And so what I want to do before we even get started, because many people, Errol, and first off, good morning to you.
Good morning, Mark.
And many people, what I want to start before we even get into the interview is to explain what is the function of the school board, because a lot of people really don't even realize what the function of the school board is.
Well, good morning to your listeners, Mark. The function of the school board primarily is policy-making body. It controls the policy-making mechanism of the system. We not really manage, but we make sure that the system works well for all the children of the district. But beyond a policy-making body, we are also advocates for the children. We are advocates for quality education. So sometimes we are called upon to go to places like Trenton to advocate. And that we consider to be part of what we do. So it's just not coming to a board meeting and review action items and vote and these things. We are also actively engaged in making sure that our system works well and that our children are properly served.
Now, Mr. Kerr, Commissioner Kerr, has actually been on the school board. This is your third term or second term, or which term is it?
This will be my fourth.
This will be the one you're running for, or the one you're in?
No, the one that I'm in is my third term.
Okay, he's in his third term, and he's seeking re-election for the fourth.
Correct.
And he's actually seated because the last campaign, so this gets back into the commentary when people tell you every single vote counts, because the last term, Errol was unseated by a very tiny amount of votes, right. Very small amount. And then some things occurred where the person who did win, and we still kind of wonder how did that whole thing go down, but it happened and he did win. But then they found out something, that he wasn't properly vetted, and he was unseated, and then Mr. Kerr was put back in his seat.
Right.
So now he is seeking his fourth term in the school board, and deservedly so, because he has served the community well. And he is dedicated, as he said, to the children. And the school board is not, like he said, just about coming to the school board meetings and folks get up to the mic venting and so forth and so on. They hear all of that, but also they do set policy. And Paterson is in a very interesting place, and this is why this election is very important, because we're right on the cusp of going back to local control, because even that we're probably going to have to kind of differentiate for you, for those of you who may not be aware. And I'll quickly give it to you. Paterson has been, along with some other major cities, particularly the urban cities within the state, had been taken over by the state of New Jersey. In Paterson's case, it's been almost 25 years now. Now we're on the precipice. We're right there on the edge of coming back to allowing the city in and of itself, the local authorities to control the district. That's where we are. That's why this election is so important, because it may happen within this term. All right. So Commissioner Kerr is seeking your support. So I'll tell you what, let's talk a little bit about, Earl. What are some of the things you feel are some of your greatest accomplishments that you've had since, your 3 terms that you've been in? What are some of the things you really feel like you got done that you wanted to get done?
Well, one of the reasons why the district was taken over by the state is it was for some financial mismanagement. When I got to the district, because of my business background, I was placed on the fiscal committee as its chair. The food services department, when I got there, was facing a deficit of $4 million. And I realized that was a very serious situation for us at the time. So what I did, I called my folks together and let them know that this is not a situation that is tolerable, and we had to do something about it. So we worked meticulously at ways and means of not only reducing but eliminating the $4 million. And I'm very, very proud to say that today we are running a surplus in that department. And it was simply because of a drive to make sure that it doesn't happen. So that could be spread out across the district. If you see something that's broken and you determine that you want it to disappear, you're going to work hard to get it fixed. And that's what we are not doing right now, and that's what we should be doing.
So I've seen a lot of your editorials and your commentary and things that's been on social media, as well as the blogs and so forth and so on. And congratulations on that, by the way. You just, I don't know if you heard him, he just said he went from a $4 million deficit to a surplus. Now that's, if anything, those of you that know anything about math, like on the number line when it's negative. Yeah. So what he's saying is we took that from negative on the number line to in the positive.
Right.
All right. And so congratulations on that. So in terms of, as you're seeking this, and I've seen your commentary, why should folks vote for you? I see your palm card here. It says competent, committed, and consistent. Talk a little bit about that and make your case for why you are the person that folks should vote for.
Well, let's start with competence. I mentioned the fiscal situation that we had, and we work and erase the deficit and so on. That's just one small area. But let's look at commitment. You have 9 members on that board, and it's very important that you work as a team. You work with the administration, and you work with parents, because all 3 components goes together to make the system work. I've been very, very active with the administration in terms of how we go about organizing our system to make it work. Of course, I'm critical sometimes, but I'm not only critical, I also point to ways in which we can make our system better. I'm also advocate with, for the children, so I work with parents. I work very closely with the Paterson Education Fund to make sure that we have that outside voice, that I can listen to what they're saying, take some of what they're saying and present it as a commissioner to the administration. Say these are areas that I think we should work with. And I'm also active with the parents. I'm one of the commissioners, and if you just go back and review some of those things, who talks about establishing in every school in our district a parent-teachers association, because I believe it is necessary. Parents should not be afraid to come to a school, because they should be a part of that system. They should be the ones who make it work. You should take ownership of that building. So every parent, every teacher, and all the student that goes to that school should realize that this is a partnership. You can't just run home and tell your parent that a teacher said this. No, let's get back to the school. Let me hear what the teacher has to say. So it's a complete working together to make the system work. So those are the things that I see as very important, and those are the things that I pursue in order to make the system better for all of our kids.
All right. Now, if you've just joined us, or if you're listening and if you have a question for Commissioner Kerr, you can call us. Because, see, a lot of times whenever I have my guests on the telephone, I don't like to fool with trying to get multiple callers on the line because somebody ultimately gets dropped. But when I have folks here live in the studio, you have the opportunity to call in, and we can hear you and you can hear them. The number is 973-720-2738. Again, if you have a question for Commissioner Kerr, it is 973-720-2738, and we'll get you on the line. I did have someone text me a question, and the question was, what are your thoughts about school choice?
Well, I'm for school choice, but school choice doesn't mean that you give one parent edge over another parent, or one student over another student. So let's put that in context. Now, there is presently some argument regarding charter schools, PCTI, and I'm, one of those commissioners who are opposed to charter schools the way they are presently constructed. Now, we have a budget, and we have buildings, and we have certain services that we must provide. The budget is predicated upon those services that we must provide to our kids. Now, if charters are used to reduce that budget, then in effect what you're doing, you're reducing our ability to deliver this kind of services that we need to deliver across the district. So I believe what we need to do is to improve our system, make all of our schools of the same quality. So any parent want to send the child to this school or that school, the education at every one of our schools would be equal. It would be on par. So you would have choice. If you, in that way, you have choice. The problem that I have, though, is this. When you peel off piece of the budget to create charter schools, and then those kids, you have probably a small portion of those kids are able to go to any one of those charters. If that charter provides better service and you can provide matching service in the district, then those kids are given a leg up on the other kids who remain in the district. So I have a problem with that. I think we should work hard to create a level playing field for all our students, make our system better, where it serves all of our kids. And that is not being accomplished when you do the present thing that you make one school better and the other school better, or you are able to send your kids, one kid up to PCTI, and no parent want a kid to go to Eastside High School or Kennedy High School or the rest of our high schools. I believe if you're going to build charters, government should support, take new money, find new money, and give those charters so that, but you cannot resource the comprehensive or the comprehensive high schools or the elementary schools and expect them to compete. When the scores come in, you say, well, you didn't perform well enough. No, we don't have the resources. A lot of I'm still seeing people complaining about, pencils in schools and books in schools, computer system in school, that we just don't have it because the money is not there. So we just not, should be staying in a corner and talking about, the choice. Choice should be for everybody and not only for a special class or for students.
Now, I was having this conversation again yesterday with someone about charter schools. The other thing charter schools have, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, the other thing they have is they have the ability to say who comes and who doesn't come.
Exactly.
It's kind of like they get the best of both worlds, the combination of like a private school and a public school.
Exactly.
And so they get to say, no, I'm sorry, you can't come here. Versus a public school, we don't get to say that.
No, the charter schools audition to get kids in there. And they're going to take the best of what we have. And then they're going to ask us, after they take the best, now you educate those kids who have some issues and so on. And at the same time, you're reducing us in terms of the resources that we have to educate those kids.
Right.
Special ed kids, they're not taking equal, numbers of for special ed kids. And to educate a special ed child, it's more expensive than a child who's in the regular program. So for us to be reasonable and give everybody a fair shot at this, we must provide the resources. If you want to go to a charter school, fine. But for those who are left behind, we need to have this, adequate resources so that we can go ahead and give them the proper education.
If you've just joined us, you're listening to Commissioner Errol Kerr. He's the current commissioner. He's the incumbent at this point. He's already sitting in the seat, and he is seeking re-election to the Paterson Public School System School Board, the Board of Education. And as Errol said, he's been on there now. This is his third term. He's seeking his fourth, and he's asking for your support. And we're talking about some of the things he's done and some of his views in terms of what's going on in our field of education in the city of Paterson, New Jersey, because they have been embattled. We have just gone through, and I've heard it over and over again, in terms of the budget, one of the probably the worst budget crisis that we've ever been in. And I've heard that from everybody, from the superintendent on down, in terms of, just as Earl just said, the money is not there. And with that means we have to do a lot of workarounds. But something Earl just said about school choice that I know for me, and again, putting now, because when I come here on Saturday mornings, for the most part, I take off the principal hat. But putting back on the principal hat, for me, any building I go into, I try to make it into a place where people are knocking the doors down to get in, not knocking the doors down to get out. So regardless of what the school is, I want it to be a place where every teacher wants to come to teach, and where every student wants to come to learn, and where every parent wants to put their child. Yeah. Now, that's just me. I don't know if every leader thinks that way or not, but that's the way when I go into a building, I'm going to make this a place where everybody wants to come to. And to Errol's point, that is the way, when you start talking school choice, that's the way it should be for parents. It shouldn't be, I don't want to put my child in this school because it's so bad, and I want to put him in this school because it's so good. They all should be equally as good, and depending on maybe what the child wants to do, maybe that will determine what school the kid goes to. All right. So again, if you want to talk to Errol, the number is 973-720-2738. We'll get you on the air. You can talk to him live. I've been doing radio long enough to know that just because the phone does not light up does not necessarily mean people are not listening. But if you are bold enough and you want to call in and ask Mr. Kerr a question, the number is 973-720-2738. We're coming up on the 8 o'clock hour. In about 4 minutes or so, we'll change over into the Martha and Friends, and we have a friend here with us. And again, I always make it known that any of the candidates running for any office, it really, I've had Assembly, I've had Senate, I've had Freeholder, I've had, Governor, I've had all candidates throughout the years stop through. And it's a wonderful opportunity. So if you want to take it up, you can do just as Mr. Kerr has done. Between now and the election day, come up on any Saturday morning and we'll get you in and we'll talk to you, or you can call in, either way. But again, Errol, I'll tell you one thing. I came out of corporate into education, and I thought politics in corporate was bad. I had no clue that politics in education was as it is. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then I'll interrupt you as we do the weather and all that stuff for the 8 o'clock hour. But without naming names per se, we won't name names to protect the guilty. But in any event, let's talk a little bit. How much of an influence does politics have in the educational process?
Politics has a lot of influence because look at this, Mark. The budget of the state of New Jersey is roughly $33 billion. And a third of that money goes to education. So it's a big piece of the budget. So businesses, everybody's looking at ways and means where they can stake their claim and their piece of that pie. So it's not just purely about educating our kids. The business piece comes into it, and therefore, because of that, then the politics comes into it. As commissioners on the board, we have to guard against every piece of action item that comes before us to make sure that it's not tainted. Because there are people. Why you think the political people are trying to get their choices on the board? They're trying to get their choices on the board because by so doing, they'll be able to get an in on the board in terms of their contracts, because we look at every contract that comes in. Sometimes we can tell that this one, based on our knowledge concerning certain businesses, that they are politically connected. You look at who support who. People need to read the elect report so that who's supporting who. I get my support from the average person in the street. There is not one company that supports me. So you know what? I am not beholden to anybody. I'm there to make decisions based on the needs of our kids and not the needs of the politician. But don't believe they're not there. They are there. The charter system, it's a political decision by the Republican Party to get their piece of the action. They're talking about kids are not learning. They don't care. When did they ever care about you not being educated? Huh? They don't care. What they care about is the money. It's the money. And we got to wise up enough to know that this is the real deal. It's not about your kids. It's about the money.
And we are at the 8 o'clock hour, and Errol hit on something that, it really is. And more folks really need to kind of understand that and be able to articulately speak against that, because in many cases you have to question, well, was this truly in the best interest of the child, or was this about somebody's vacation home in Tahiti? It's kind of like, you really do have to, whenever, especially if you kind of can sit back and watch, but too many people are not aware. And so they don't know how to put a case or a question together to get to the real deal. And that's kind of like what Errol is talking about. And interestingly enough, he just said he's not beholden to any company, because again, as in politics, it's just like you hear it on the national level about this pay-to-play thing. Right. In terms of companies and industries who have lobbyists who are connected with the candidates, and then once the candidate wins, then the candidate now got to turn around and repay the support. And so what Errol is saying is that's not his situation. He's not beholden to any particular industry or any particular company, because he's not seeking their support, and they're not seeking him out. But that frees him up to be able to say what he feels. To be able what his conviction and what he believes in terms of the best interest of the children, that frees him up for that. So I'll tell you what, let me do what I need to do for 8 o'clock, and we're going to take a pause moment for me to give you the weather, and then we will continue with our interview with Commissioner Errol Kerr.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Paterson Broadcast Network.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
All right now we have creeped up a little bit more. We're 38.3 degrees, working our way up to a high today of 64. It's going to be sunny, and then we're going to fall back to clear skies tonight, 45 degrees. It'll be clear, but 45, a little bit chillier, but hey, again, it is fall. Then tomorrow, Sunday, partly cloudy, high of 71, low of 60, partly cloudy skies early. They're going to give way to some light rain tomorrow night, 70% chance of rain on tomorrow night. Then on Monday, a few clouds early, otherwise mostly sunny, high of 78, low of 59. And then on Tuesday, sunny skies near record high temperatures, high of 81, low of 61. Tuesday night, mostly clear skies, and then on Wednesday again, 82. 56 degrees as a low, 82 degrees as a high. All right, that is the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center.
Having a place to go after school will make you a better student. Having an outlet to express yourself will make you a better artist. Having something to do together will make you a better family. At the Y, we're helping build better friends, listeners, writers, swimmers, scientists, and musicians, one chance at a time. Give the gift of opportunity. Support the Y at ymca.net. The Y, for a better us.
We are indeed in now the Martha and Friends Hour, and a friend has stopped by the studio, and I throw that invitation out to anyone in the listening audience. If you're running for any office in the local area and you want to come by on a Saturday morning, I am here. And most of the time we'll start these type interviews around 7:30, 8 o'clock. So you have the opportunity to, I'll use this as your platform, for an hour or so to get your message out to the listening audience as to why they ought to vote for you. Me personally, I won't tell you who I'm voting for. I'm just going to tell you to make sure you vote, because every vote really does count. I've seen elections lost, literally. I've seen local elections and union elections. I've literally seen them lost by one vote. One single vote. So we're not even talking on national level when we start getting into the electoral votes and all that stuff. I'm talking about one single vote, like a 346 to 345. So every vote counts. Do not take for granted and do not think, well, I don't need to go out. Yes, you do. So on November 8th, make sure you go out. All right. And so Errol has joined us. My wife sent me a text, told me to tell you hello. She's sending all her love.
All right.
So Yvette says hello to you. And
hello, Yvette.
All right, so Errol is running for his fourth term on the Paterson Public Schools School Board. Now, we were talking about funding a couple of minutes ago. What are your thoughts in terms of, and I think you kind of hit on it about when we were talking about the charter schools, but as you know, the governor has been looking at taking away Abbott funds. What are your thoughts in terms of if that were to occur, or what are we going to do, or how does that help or hurt our children? Talk a little bit about the Abbott funding.
Well, as you know, Mark, Abbott came about in, about 1987, the first Abbott decision. And the Abbott was designed, the Abbott, and for, my community here, Abbott is, in New Jersey, the Abbott is like the civil rights movement of New Jersey. Abbott started with 31 of our more disadvantaged districts, the districts that were way behind the more affluent districts of New Jersey. What the Abbott decision was designed to do was to bring those districts up to par with the more affluent districts, so that we could get uniformity in terms of quality instructions across the entire state. However, although we got some more money, we did not see the progress that we needed to see within the system. The money was thrown at us, but the structure wasn't there. So what is happening now is that the governor has decided, listen, you did not make the necessary progress that you should have made. Therefore, we need to take that money back. So what the governor is proposing now, I believe the average per pupil allotment, if you level it out in New Jersey, it will come to about 15,000 per student. That's what you would have. But what the governor is now proposing is that, the other districts are wasting, so we need to take back that money and be fair and spread it out, give the affluent and everybody the same allocation per pupil. And that would make us, instead of getting about 15,000 per pupil, it bring us to 6,500 thereabout. Just take a breath for a moment. Is that realistic? Right now, you use Paterson as a measure. We're still struggling with providing librarians. We're still struggling with nurses. We are still struggling with security, and have not even touched a classroom yet. We arts, music, it is absent in our district because we just don't have the money. Now you look at Eastside High School. That was a school that was rich in its history regarding music. You have marching bands, Kennedy High School marching band. You don't have it today because you don't have the resources to provide it. So what we have today is bare bones education. So there is no extras there for anything. So on top of that, you're going to cut the education appropriation in two. So what is that going to do to our system? It's going to decimate our system. We might as well decide to shut down half of our schools if we were to go the route of the governor. It's not a practical recommendation. It's not a workable recommendation. And therefore, we should be concerned as a district.
Now, playing devil's advocate, because again, I'm on the education side, but playing devil's advocate, what do you say to folks to say, you know what, you all have mismanaged the money that you were given? I mean, you've been given this money all these years, you haven't gotten the results, we've got all these reports of missing money, so forth and so on. How do we combat that argument, or how do we defend against that argument?
Well, for you to say, well, the money was mismanaged, there has to be clear evidence that it was. I remember the time in Paterson when we, talked about, there was about a $50 million misappropriation, but it was the same situation where you have commissioners on the board who were not serious about their jobs, who allowed action items to come before them, didn't scrutinize it properly, and allow it to just pass, and then people get all kinds of payments, and we pay for fire trucks that were not in Paterson and that kind of stuff. That doesn't happen today. That I've been the chair of the fiscal committee for 10 years, and I dare anybody to tell me one item that crossed our desk that was not properly vetted and scrutinized. So it's not there anymore. The fact is, we have to teach ELL students here in Paterson, ESL students here in Paterson, and we are the district that constantly have to spend extra money developing programs to address, because we're a immigrant society here, and a lot of kids coming to this country, they're coming without any formal training, formal education, and then it puts a lot of more stress on the system to educate those kids than it is for a district that is monolithic in terms of their language and their culture. So it's very stressful for us, and it demands more spending. So we are not seeing mismanagement here today.
If you've just joined us, you're listening to WP 88.7 FM. We are in the Martha and Friends Hour, and we have Commissioner Errol Kerr on with us this morning. He is seeking his fourth term in his school board seat there in Paterson Public Schools and the Paterson Board of Education, and it is at a critical time. It's like whenever you keep hearing about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, about how important this election is, because they're going to have the opportunity to screen and pick Supreme Court judges. Well, it's the same thing here at the Paterson level, because we're right at the cusp of the possibility of going back to local control. And see, in many school districts in the suburban communities, the school board does the choosing of the superintendent and so forth and so on. Whenever you're state control, the school board is more like an advisory group. They're more like an advisory group at this point. They don't have the powers that a local controlled board would have. But now we're at that point where they may very well get that power of just like all the other districts surrounding us. So if that were to happen, Mr. Kerr, how do you see things changing? Do you see anything any different in terms of now you all taking control versus the state being in control?
Yes, there would be some changes. First and foremost is our ability to choose the superintendent that runs the operation. Right now, the superintendent does not report to the board. The superintendent reports to Trenton. So his allegiance is primarily to his boss. He's not going to, there are many times when we turn certain things down and he vetoes it, and that's what stands. But if we are the ones who are really in charge of the district, when we decide against a program, it's decided against. He will not have any out to put it in effect. So it's very important, and then the board would be instrumental in the programs that we pursue. Right now, it's not that way; it's the other way around. So we would have more control. There would be things that we would be able to do that we are not able to do it now, because then it would be us in charge and not the state.
Now, this is where again the choice of people who sits on that board becomes critical, because as you just heard Mr. Kerr say, they will now be in charge of the programs, this, that, and the other. The danger, if there is such a, because there's danger on either side. It goes either way, back to the politics we were talking about. But depending who sits on that board will determine which programs go, which programs don't, which contracts get approved, which programs don't. So what you can't have is people sitting on there who are controlled by these outside forces that Errol was talking about earlier, who are beholden to pay for play or who's supporting them, this, that, and the other. That you cannot have, particularly in local control, because that will influence. Right. And the influence may wind up being because you're my friend or because you did me this favor and I did. That's why you got to have people of integrity sitting in those seats.
Right. Someone
who's going to make the best choice for the child and not necessarily the best choice for I got to pay a friend back. Now let me ask you this question. I remember years ago, and I was in grad school. Mm-hmm. And I told my professor, I was thinking about it at that time. I was thinking about running for school board. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I had not come into education yet. I was still working in corporate. And I told him, I'm thinking about running for school board. He said, why would you want to do that? It's an unpaid position, and you take all this flack from everybody. So, I mean, that's because folks in the audience, you need to understand, this is not a paid position. And I have worked the political side. I've been campaign managers for people running for school board, and so I know. Like, do you still get this big UPS drop at home of all these documents? Does that still come to you, or do they do them electronically now?
Electronically.
Okay, because there was. I remember in early 2000s. In the early 2000s, UPS would come to the house with this huge package of documents that the board members expected to read over and be able to talk about at the board meeting. All right, so now they do it electronically. But the question is, and this is again for those of you that are going to vote, to help you understand that these positions are not paid positions. This is a volunteer position that folks run for to be a part of. So why beyond the same thing the professor asked me, why would you want to do that?
There are a couple of things. First of all, it's about making a system that better, that it will serve the kids. And there is no greater satisfaction to me than to know that I contribute something to a life that would otherwise not have been contributed to. Now, when you go on the street and you see kids, you look at them. You sometimes you can see the promise in them, and you say to yourself, I know if I had somebody in my background that was making
WP88.7
the system better for me, then I would be
yes, hold on,
a better person. A better person. So for me, it's making a system, touching a life, making that person, creating a pathway, so to speak, for that individual. And then the other thing, to Mark, this is a life experience. To me, it's going to grad school, getting my doctorate, because the experience you gain from being there, going through the processes and learning the nuances, and meeting people, talking to parents, meeting children, see their growth and so on. It's a life experience that you take that with you. So although there is no material return from it, the satisfaction one gets to know that they are doing things that impacts the life of young people is bountiful.
All right. Well, someone has taken me up on my challenge, and they've called to talk to Commissioner Kerr. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. How are you doing today, Mr. Medley? I'm listening to your interview here live on your station here, but I would like to say I'm calling because I'm a Paterson parent, sir.
Okay.
And I'm a voter. I vote at JFK High School, sir. And I'll tell you one thing. I watch the board meetings, and this man, Commissioner Kerr, is a fighter for Paterson's children. And we need to get him back on the board. The man is highly motivated. He's an extremely enthusiastic commissioner from the time he came on the board, sir. And he's a real fighter for the kids. And he's not like some commissioners. They use this as a stepping stone to get to the next level, to get on the city council, get on whatever. He has been there, and he'll tell you from day one, this is what I want to do. And I know you're talking about about not getting paid and the big package. I'm listening to your show right now, but he's not in this for the money, sir. He is this because of the children. And I'll tell you one thing, there are a lot of fights on the board, but he'll tell you that he is doing this for the Paterson's children. And you hear what he just said? He's looking at the faces of those children.
That's right.
He sees the talent. And Mr. Medley, also, you're doing a great job at school number 4, sir, turning around those kids there.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And I thank you for your call. By chance, do you have a question for Commissioner Kerr at all? Or was it just a statement? You just want to let the folks know that he is the one to throw their support behind?
I'll tell you one thing. Most of my questions, he has answered them because of the committee forums and stuff he has done. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm calling on the other parents. Please come out and vote. Come out to vote November the 8th. And whoever you're voting, please vote for Commissioner Kerr. We would like to get him back on the board. He's already on the board. We would like him to continue for, forever. Forever we want him on the board. He will retire on the board.
So as long as he wants to be on there, we want him on there. Okay, I hear you. Well, I thank you for that. And
I told you, I have one final statement to make. The man does understand finances. He was chair of the District Finance and Budget Committee. And I watch him. I watch the way he articulates himself on the board, the way he interacts with people at different professional levels. The man understands human development, sir. Not only in its functional, but also in its maladaptive manifestations. He knows about children. I'm a Paterson parent, and I support him 100% because he cares about my kids. My children are all born and raised in Paterson. And he cares about Paterson kids. His grandkids are in the Paterson public school system. It's not like I said, it's not like some board members, I'm using this as a stepping stone to get to the council.
And see, I'm glad you went there because I was going to go there, and I'm glad you went there. I am going to still bring it back up, and I'm not mad at the ones who do, but you bring up a very good point in terms of using that position as a stepping stone, because there has been some that literally was there a year or so and then moved on to the next seat. And then there's others who've been at the school board level, and I just told you, that's not a paid position. That's something that they do, if there is such a thing as spare time. That's something these folks do in their spare time.
But you know what? That is like a full-time job. The amount
it sure is.
The amount of paperwork you have to read is a lot of research you have to do. It's like a full-time job. And he's not getting paid.
Absolutely.
What we can do for him, and the board members also, is to vote for him and put him back on the board again.
All right. Well, caller, I thank you for that. And listening audience, you heard it from someone who called in. If you'd like to call in and join us, the number is 973-720-2738. Have a great day, caller.
Okay, Mr. Medley. Okay, Commissioner Kerr. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care now. All right. So, I mean, you just heard from a call. If you have a question for Commissioner, because this is your opportunity. This is an opportunity you can talk to the candidate live. I know we have the candidate forums. They get a chance they go around to the various venues, but you have a chance this morning, if you're listening, just like that caller just did, you can call in, ask a question, or make a statement, 973-720-2738. And that caller brought up something where I was going to go, because Commissioner Kerr has not done that. He and a few others on there, they were not necessarily using the school board as a stepping stone for the next seat. Usually after school board is city council. And then after city council, usually folks run for mayor. And then after mayor, they'll go into the assembly. And after the assembly, they'll do Congress or either. So, I mean, that's kind of like the road, if you will. But there are certain board members that's not been their aspiration, that they truly are there because they want to be there to help impact what happens with our children. And Errol and I were talking prior to coming on the air that sometimes, and it's, again, I'm taking my principal hat off. I'm not doing conflict of interest. I'm not doing any of that, because truth be told, I know every last one of the school board members, and even those who are running, I know all of them personally. And any of them want to come up, they are free to come up. I know I don't look for any favors from them. I don't expect anything to happen. If I submit something any different from any other principal in the district, I really don't. So we were talking earlier, in some instances, our kids are used as pawns. And that, to me, is sad. And a lot of the parents don't really realize and this goes back into the politic thing again. And the fact that you're hearing Errol say, I'm in this because I want to see, and what I didn't know was the caller just said, your grandkids are in the school system. So he has a real vested interest. Because I've had my kids come through the system as well. He has a real vested interest because his grandkids are in the system. So, for those of you, again, every vote counts. Come out, because not only is it a presidential election, you got to do the whole thing. You got to do the questions that are on the ballot. You got to do the school board piece that's on there, the congressional piece that's on there, as well as the presidential. You got to do all of them. Don't go in there and bullet vote. Go in there and make your choice made all the way across the board. And Errol is seeking your support. Again, he's been there before. He was back on there again by Design Providence, and now he's seeking to be on there again. So as you move forward, Errol, what are you looking to do, when you're elected into your fourth term? What are you looking to get accomplished?
Well, it will be a brand new situation, because we are moving, as you have said, we are on the cusp of getting back control of the district. The challenge for us going forward is funding. You know, Mark, that we have been underfunded, or flat funded for the past 7 years. We have not gotten one extra dime to deliver the kinds of education that is commensurate with quality and growth for our kids. We have not gotten that. And beside that, we are losing money by the expansion of charters in our districts, and now we are talking about expanding PCTI. What that potentially does to us is to reduce us to a place where we would not be able to give our kids anything near what they are presently getting, and what they are presently getting is not A1 education. So the challenge for the school board, getting back local control, is how do we go about making sure that our 30,000 kids in our system will be able to compete with their surrounding communities. I don't know. First, my proposal is, and I hope we get a new governor, and a governor who understands the whole process of economy by scale, that you can't just divide up the system and create different houses in the system, because it's easier when you have one house and all the money come to one house and everybody get fed in the same house. Because if you have 5 different houses, Mark, and your salary have to be split across for 5 different houses, it doesn't make sense. Economy of scales tell you that that's not a good idea. So we are hoping to get a governor who understands this and will be more sympathetic, to our situation, and help us or put a moratorium on the expansion of charters here. Because if you don't, then we are not going to be able to do too much. So that's a challenge for us as a board member, going to find ways and means of stopping the hemorrhaging of our district, keep our seniors here in Paterson, find ways of improving our schools, making our schools more attractive. So we will have to move our parents. We'll have to find ways of motivating our student community here in Paterson, and we have to find a way of orchestrating from the administrative position, ways that we can better serve the district. So it's a big challenge for us. I don't believe that it's something that is insurmountable in terms of the skill set that we have in this district. We have a lot of people, and we have to rest on our community. We have retired teachers, we have retired people who are willing, I suppose, to come in and lend a helping hand so that we can bolster the system, because you can't serve just part of this district and say you are doing a good job. Because what do you do to the other part that you're not servicing? Because they're the ones who are going to be coming back, that if you don't serve them today, you're going to have to serve them at the other end, which is not a good thing.
Now, in terms of servicing our children, you were just talking about that, and whenever we were on the break, whenever I had to go into the top of the hour segment about giving you the weather and all that, Errol was sitting here watching me work all this technological equipment. I mean, because there's like all these computers in front of me, plus the board for the radio, so on, and I had to work all of this. And where I'm going with this is, our children have to be prepared, because as we move forward, into this millennium, this is what they're going to be facing. And if they can't read and follow instructions and so forth, they're going to be lost.
Right.
They are just not going to be able to function. I mean, you saw me sitting here, be able to pull up the sound and this, and for the most part, that's the way our children are going to have to be able to operate. What are we doing in terms of trying to prepare our inner city kids to be able to because they're technology they got. I mean, they know iPads at 2 and 3 years old. They can take an iPad and swipe and punch and this, that, and that. But in terms of in our schools, what are we doing to help them with that? And in terms of, again, I know you were talking about the parity, but I mean, our kids really have to be ready to function. Looks like we have another caller. Let's see if I can get that caller on the air. Good morning, caller. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Medley. How are you?
Good. I'm well. How are you?
Good. This is Yvette.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do me a favor. Turn your radio down. We're getting the feedback in the background.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And it looks like I have another call as well. Hold on a second. See if I can get that in as also.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, caller.
Okay. This question is for Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Mr. Carr, good morning. I have a question. Being that the school board election is now moved to November, is there any concern that the views of the candidates would not be heard among all the noise of general election and everything else?
Yes, that's a concern that I have and others do have, that people will not be drawn to the booths simply because of their interest in education. They will go to the booth for other reasons, and passingly they will cast a vote mindlessly for a school board commissioner. And that's a concern. When you had the balloting in April, every single person who goes to that voting booth, they go there with education on their minds. So they would vet the candidates, they would know what to do, and when they go there, it's about education. What is happening now, it's the congressional person, it's the president, it's the freeholder and so on. And then you may stick the Board of Ed in there at some point.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for that call. I have another caller on the line as well. Who's our second caller? Is there another caller on the line?
It's Gloria.
Oh, hey, Gloria, how you doing? I have a guest, as you can see. I have one of our school board commissioners. So I'm gonna defer this morning, if you would, in terms of our usual gospel community announcements, if you don't mind.
Okie dokie.
All right, thank you. By chance, do you have any question for our commissioner at all?
I just turned in. I'm so sorry.
Okay, not a problem. All right, so I tell you what, we'll catch up again next week. For those of you listening, as you know, usually Glory Hallelujah lets us know what's going on in the gospel community, but I'm going to defer this morning so that we can continue on with our interview. So, all right, Glory, thank you very much.
Ready.
Have a wonderfully blessed week.
Hang up. I just want to listen.
Okay. In terms of Errol, now, did you go to school in Jamaica or you went to school here?
Both.
Okay.
I went to college here.
Okay, and the reason I asked this question, because my wife is from the Caribbean, she's from Jamaica as well, and school systems in a lot of our other countries, particularly like a Jamaica, because some school systems, they're actually behind us. Yeah. The kids don't even go to school at all, and then there are some who are, for the most part, ahead of us in terms of the ability to get their kids to learn. They don't have all this highfalutin curriculum. They don't have all of it. But their kids learn. And I remember I was there in Jamaica, and I was there in 7, I was there in 10, I was there in a couple more years. But I think it was when I was there in 2007. Maybe it was 2000, I'm not sure. But I remember listening to the radio there, and they were talking about taking on a lot of the policies of the U.S. And my initial reaction was, oh, don't do that. Whatever you got working here, you better keep it. But I mean, when you saw, in terms of influencing your thoughts in terms of how education grew up, does that play in at all to some of your, wait a minute, I know school can be better than this?
Yes. Yes. the difference at the elementary level between there and here, and not only the school system in general, is that you might find people who might not got the opportunity to be schooled to the fullest extent. So they may drop out at 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade school, and they went to get jobs because the economy is different. But between the 1st grade and the 6th grade, the curriculum and the instruction is so tight that even when they drop out at early ages, they can manage. They can manage and they can do things, But here the difference, Mark, with the system. Parents there are more engaged. Because you'll hear somebody who dropped out of school at, say, 7th or 8th grade. They will say, look, I'm going to make sure that you, Paul, Mary, you're going to go to school because you're not coming out here and do the same thing like I did. All right? So they would go to school, they would work their tails off to make sure that their children are better educated than they are. And that's the difference. Now here, you kids there, you have to take a test. You have to audition to go to the school that you want to go to. So, kids are fighting each other. So the process demand that you compete to get to where you want to go. It's not a given, So kids fight hard to get there. When in this country, you just walk into it. So
and they don't even want that. That's absolutely right. Errol is absolutely right, because I know, some of my nieces and nephews on my wife's side, that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to get into some of the best schools in the country, and they exactly what Errol just said. They're competing to get in there, and their parents compete right along with them.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. So, again, if you just joined us, this is Errol Kerr, current commissioner on the Paterson Public School Board, and he is seeking re-election. And that question that was asked in terms of it being on the ballot in November, I know that was a hot issue, and you're absolutely right, and that's always the concern. I mean, on the one hand, it's like, okay, everybody's going to the polls anyway, especially this year because it's presidential. In other years, it really gets kind of crazy because a lot of times on that November Tuesday, if it's not presidential, folks are not going. But this year, at least we know, at least we hope, because I don't know, looking at these two candidates we have, I don't know. but this year, the hope is it's presidential, so a lot of people will be driven to the polls. But as Errol said, the concern is that the school board piece will get lost. I kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, that, folks will go in there and they'll hit either Trump or Hillary and walk back out. Right. And they won't even look at the rest of the ballot because, again, our attention spans are very short. So it's like if we walk in there and all we know is I'm voting for the president, we may not be thinking school board or Congress or freeholder or surrogate or this, that, and the other. And don't let a question be on there, like a bond question or something. You can forget it. But what we're encouraging those of you that are listening and tell everybody, those of you who are listening and tell everybody else, this is something you do need to gossip about. Go out there and tell people to vote everything. Take a couple of minutes. I don't care how sadly in Paterson the lines don't be that long. Hopefully it is long line this time. But no matter how long the line is, take the few minutes to go through the entire ballot. Go through the question, go through every office that's being held. Because for me, I tell people all the time, I don't care if it's dog catcher, I'm going out to vote because too many people have died for us to have the right to do it. So as bad or as good as the candidates may or may not be, I'm still casting my vote because too many people died for me to have the opportunity to do that. If you're female, the same goes for you. Too many people died for women to be able to vote, if you're whatever. So get out there and look at the entire ballot. But the concern is that, it will get lost in the sauce. All right. So we're telling you now, school board is on the November ballot. The school board candidates are on there. Look at them and pick your best choice. You've had the opportunity to hear Commissioner Kerr this morning. You read your newspaper. Do your homework. That's what I have on my signboard, by the way, at school. If you walk past my school on my outside signboard, that's what it says. Do your homework. And I didn't mean it just for the kids. I also meant it for the adults that walk by, too. Do your homework. Don't just go into anything willy-nilly. Study it first. Yeah. You've had the opportunity to hear Commissioner Kerr's positions. I know one of the things that come up, I was just reading about it a couple of days ago, was this, and I can't quite see this myself. I don't know, this whole thing of collapsing the two football teams, Kennedy and Eastside. I'm reading that saying, well, how does that work? But that's one of the things, because of the budget that's proposed, that they would collapse the Eastside and Kennedy athletic programs. I don't know, I know each of you all had your opinions. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, Mark, I've heard that conversation way before we got into the budget crunch. The argument was being made that there's a need to collapse these two programs together in order that we may win championships. Yeah, what they said is your better players are spread out between the two teams, and because of that, you cannot effectively field a team that is able to challenge other teams. So if you combine both teams, you will become stronger, and you will raise the possibility of winning by so doing. So what they did when the problems arise with the funding situation, they say, okay, we can save some money by collapsing the two teams, but that wasn't the original thought. This is just to exploit the situation. So so that's what they're doing. But it would maybe cost us more right now to collapse both teams and have them work as one team, as opposed to keep them separated. No, also you'd lose years of history where these two teams battle each other, for bragging rights. That's a part of the sport. You don't want to give that up.
That's correct.
You don't want to give that up.
Yeah, the thinking behind the champion. So it would just be one Paterson team.
One Paterson team, yeah.
So when they go play a school in one of the surrounding areas, that's the Paterson football team.
Just the Paterson football team, yeah.
See, that doesn't make sense, because the whole.
But
this is my, now again, let me put the disclaimer out there. This is my personal view, and let me tell you why it doesn't make sense to me, and Errol kind of touched on it. The whole point is you have your own school pride. The competition is between schools, not necessarily against. I mean, don't get me wrong. Each school plays each other. So if we play Hawthorne, or if we play Wayne, or if we play we're competing against them. But to say this is not the city of Paterson competing against the city of Hawthorne. Right. It's not the city of Paterson competing against the city of Wayne. So that argument doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because you have your school pride. Each school wants to have and if you field a better team that year, okay, if that's the case, then you wouldn't have the New York Mets, you wouldn't have New York Yankees, you wouldn't have the California, you wouldn't have the Anaheim Angels and the Los Angeles, because they're different teams, and they're competing to see who's. So it's back. This is kind of like similar to what you were talking about earlier with the charter school thing. Yeah. If that's the thought, then why not make your program the best program? If you're the Kennedy football team, why not make the Kennedy football team the best program? If you're the Eastside football team, the best. Opposed to saying, well, we're going to collapse our best players together. That just doesn't. I mean, for some it may make some sense, but for me it doesn't make sense, because that's not what you're competing against. It's not if you're doing a city team, that's fine. That's like the Olympics. You're right. All right. That's when you join all your best talent together. So forth. That's one thing. But when you're doing school to school, that's another. And Errol is right. Historically, and unfortunately, we have kind of lost that. Whenever we lost Hinchcliffe Stadium, because I remember back to, again, in terms of being well-rounded and all of that, back to the music programs and all, we went to Hinchcliffe Stadium to see the bands compete against each other at halftime, and Eastside against Kennedy, who was going to have the bragging rights of the city, so forth and so on. And it was major league. Matter of fact, I graduated in 1980. When you came out of school, you look forward to the next year of going back seeing your old classmates.
Yeah.
All that you saw at Hinchcliffe Stadium on Thanksgiving, you saw your classmates that graduated with you or right before you. So it was a whole experience that now, you do stand the chance to lose, which it's waned over the years anyway. But now, if you do that, if you combine those teams, you extinguish it altogether.
You do. And there's another layer to it, Mark, and it's this. If you do that, you're going to reduce the roster of kids who are able to play sports. Because there are some kids who are not good enough to make the team. All right, so because you collapse the programs into one, you're going to peel off, a layer of kids who would want the chance, but they're not going to get because there are better players going to come in because the roster is smaller. So
that's correct. Instead of 2 rosters, now you have one. Right. It is. If you've just joined us, you've been listening to various educational issues faced by educators, and we have one here who is seeking re-election onto the Paterson School Board. He's been with us now for the last hour or so, a little over an hour. You've had an opportunity to hear his thoughts on various issues. We are asking again. I cannot tell you from this microphone who to vote for. I wouldn't even want to do that. I know who I'm voting for, but I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. But I will tell you, as I always tell you during election time, get out there and vote. And I know many people say, no, it really doesn't matter. It's rigged. It's a process. It's a system. Still, get out there and vote. Because there has been, even on the national level, that year whenever it was Gore and Bush, it came down to a few electoral votes. It came down to that one state of Florida. It came down to that. I have seen on the local level where folks have lost by 2 or 3 little votes. I've been the campaign manager of someone who was running for city council. We lost by 150 votes in a city as large as Paterson. We lost by 150 votes. That had 151 more people voted in his favor, he would have won. And so I know when it comes down to voting, how the numbers do matter. And the sad part is, you heard me saying tongue-in-cheek a few minutes ago about how short the lines are. I mean, Paterson is a city of like 150 or 60,000 people. Of that 150, there's got to be at least 50, 60, 80, 90,000 that's eligible to vote. Okay, because we're not counting the kids. But you will get an election. An elected official in Paterson can get elected on less than 10,000 votes. In a city that large. The mayor gets elected on like 8,000 votes on a city that large. That could have been like, 70, 80, 90,000 votes. I mean, it's ridiculous. So it's the same thing. Get out there, take the time. Polling places are all around the city. You know where your polling place is. School board is on the election. I cannot emphasize that enough. The school board was moved from the spring to the November election. You need to know that. We talk about, Errol, this is the crazy thing in terms of, this is what kind of like can be annoying. And I'm not saying everybody has to be a nerd or a nudge, but we talk about everything except something that matters. How many people are you going to say, you know what, school board is on the November election? I mean, even work it in your conversation some kind of way. Don't forget, November 8th, we're voting for president, but we're also voting for school board. We're also voting. But see, we talk about all this other nonsense. We talk about what's happening on TV. We talk about what this, that, and the other. But let's talk about something that really matters. All right? These elections matter. When we started the interview, Earl was talking about how school board sets policy. You're electing people that's going to set policy. And if you happen to be like that parent who called in, who said, I have children in Paterson Public Schools, they're setting policy for your kids. Right? They're setting policy for our kids. I have 4 girls, and they've spanned the gamut. I had one that went to Rosa Parks, one that went to Eastside, 2 that went to Passaic County Tech. They spanned the gamut. They came through the grammar school years. They went through the various schools. So these are our children. This is not somebody else's children we're talking about. You heard him say Errol has 2 grandkids in the system, or grandkids in the system. We're talking about our children, not somebody else's children. So Errol is here seeking your support. I will give him last words before we close out. He can make his pitch. I have his palm card here. Tuesday, he is 9J. 9J is in Jackson or Jeffrey or Jewel or whatever you want to put in front of that J, but he is 9J, and I'll let him close out.
Well, on November 8th is a special election. And as Mark said, it's not only an election for the President of the United States or just for congressional representatives, but it's also an election that will ask you to vote for somebody who will represent your children for the next 3 years. As a commissioner of Paterson Board of Education, I've committed myself for the past 10 years to the development of education in this district. I've gotten opportunities to run for city council. I've had the experience, I know the people, and I could have stepped off and run for council. But that's honestly not where the fire in my belly is at right now. It's all about the children of Paterson. I'm here to make sure that they get the best quality education that they can get. I'm here to fight for them. I'm here to challenge the system on their behalf. And that's the reason why I'm running. We're moving from a state control board in a matter of year or so, a year and a half, back to local control. And it's important that you have people sitting at the table who have your children's interests at heart. Not someone who stepped off, run for council, loses, and want to come back. No, you want a consistent person who stays there and mind the ship on behalf of your kids. So I'm asking Paterson that on November 8th, when you go to the poll, don't forget the school board candidates. It's very important because those are the people who are going to directly impact, by the decision they make, directly impact the lives of your kids. Errol Kerr is 9J on your ballot. And I'm asking you, when you go there, please vote 9J Errol Kerr, because I have the interests of your children at heart. I have the interests of the city at heart. And I have the welfare of our state at heart. So again, on November 8th, when you go to the poll, remember 9J Errol Kerr on your ballot. Thank you.
All right, Errol, thanks for taking the time for stopping by. As I said, any candidate running for any office, you have the same opportunity as Errol took this morning. It's just a matter of you letting me know if you see me or if you text me or if you tweet me or if you something in social media. Let me know that you want to do that. You are free to do that, and you will have the same opportunity between now and Election Day to come on the show as well. Like I said, I could care less about party. It doesn't matter about party affiliation. If you're running for office and you want to talk, you want to speak to me, or you want to speak on the air, feel free to do that. It's just a matter of letting me know. I wish Errol nothing but the best, because as you heard us say, he doesn't get anything out of this. This is not like, I mean, on city council, that's a paid position. It is. That's a $40,000, $50,000 position at this point. But school board is not paid. That is their doing of their own time and service for whatever their motivations may be, but it's not a paid position. And just like we're talking about the presidential candidates, whoever wins this one is going to have the opportunity to pick a Supreme Court judge. Whoever wins this election may have the opportunity to pick the next superintendent for the city of Paterson. We don't know if it's going to happen that quickly within the 3-year time frame that Errol was just talking about, but most likely, from what I'm hearing, it is going to be somewhere within a 2-year time frame or so. So this next school board sitting there may be the board that winds up choosing the next superintendent for the city of Paterson, which is the 3rd largest city in the state of New Jersey. One of the largest districts in the state with 30,000 children. So again, I wish you nothing but the best. Those of you in the listening audience, make sure you go out and vote. And don't forget, the school board is on the ballot. right, well, this brings us to the end of my 3 hours here. Barry's already in the house. He's going to come on in with the Naked Brunch. But I tell you what, as I always leave you in parting, may you live as long as you want and not want as long as you live. Live each day as if it were your last or your first, because it really doesn't matter if you're a school board commissioner or a school principal or the president of the United States or the emperor or the king or the queen. It really does not matter what your position in life is, because at one point it's going to be the last day on this place we call Earth. And I saw something on Facebook earlier that said, it doesn't matter about the size of your house, doesn't matter about the size of your car or how new or old it is. Our graves are going to be the same size. So whatever it is you want to get done, go ahead and get it done. I always tell you all, the cemetery is a great equalizer. I don't care how prejudiced or how racist you might be in this life. You don't know who you're going to be laying next to. And so the cemetery is a great equalizer. And as that Facebook post said, the grave sites are about approximately the same size. They dig about the same width, same length, same height. So that is the great equalizer. So appreciate life. That's my point. Appreciate life. Enjoy it while we're here. And again, make sure on November 8th, I don't want to be like Donald Trump, because Donald got up there in one of his speeches and said November 28th. So I want to make sure I get it straight. It's Tuesday, November 8th, 2016. Errol Kerr said he's competent, committed, and consistent. He has the 3 C's. That's 9J, Errol Kerr. Have a wonderfully blessed week, and we'll be together again next Saturday morning, God willing.